You are now listening to The Art of Reinvention by Teflon John, where my goal is to inspire you mentally, physically, financially, and spiritually. And I just want to help you grow the garden of your mind. I just want to change the world one person at a time by giving them motivational advice, inspirational advice. And right now, I'm glad that you're tuning in to the podcast show. So we want you to sit back, open up your mind, and just absorb all the content. Please share this content across all of your social media platforms as it will help this show grow. Sit back and enjoy. One love. Be blessed. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Teflon John coming to you courtesy of the Art of Reinvention and the I Am Teflon John brand. Today we're live in City Hall with Polley, who is a second-time guest on the Art of Reinvention show. Glad to have you back, man. Glad to have you back.
Glad to be here.
So Tuesday is the big day, May 1st.
Man, it came quick, didn't it?
Came quick, yeah, man. I remember when I reached out to you about getting on the show, and when you replied and you were like, yeah, man, busy, but you made time, man, and that's one thing I like, and seeing your Facebook, how you going door to door.
Yeah.
You're really being interpersonal. I remember just seeing, politicians or people come to your door, but that's the only time you see them. But people really see you in the community, from Lynchburg Legends to working with summer basketball tournaments outside, doing it all, man.
That's what it's about, man. I mean, you can sit on the sideline and complain about things, or you can get involved and help. So May 1st, next Tuesday, we need everyone to kind of capture this excitement and bring that to the polls. I'm glad that everybody's supportive. So much support coming from the city. Everybody's feeling the excitement. Something new is happening in the city. But we have to capture that and bring that all the way to City Hall, or else it's kind of been, not null and void, but we have to finish. We got to follow through. And voting on May 1st, that's what's important.
Yeah, and I believe voting is very important because, like you said, people complain about things, but they don't carry and follow through. And what better way to follow through is to have a voice at the table.
Yeah.
In many elections, like many big elections, I've never been able to vote for people that look like me, but a few number of times I can count on my hand.
Yeah.
So why not Lynchburg? You have a chance of someone who understands, someone who's worked in factories, worked for temporary agencies, someone who's went to college, had to pay school loans, and is not a millionaire or born in money, that could actually represent you and have a seat at the table. So speaking of that, you're on the school board now.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. So what are your duties on the school board currently?
School board, of course we set policy and allocate money for the division. I'm also on the discipline committee, being able to interact with some of the kids who may have had a situation at school where they're facing a long-term suspension. And I'm kind of able to bring a perspective from someone who's, lived in an unstable household. Parents may not have been providing the most support, or you might have different things going on in the household. I'm able to relate that from a first-hand perspective, not from, trying to understand someone. So I see potential when I see these kids coming before me on the discipline committee, and I just see someone who might not have been shown the right way yet. So sometimes a 365-day suspension isn't going to do the kid any good.
Yeah.
Like if a kid is facing some trouble, why are we going to send them home for a year? Sometimes that's not the best answer. We need to find other interventions, other ways that we can help, find out what's really going on with the kid and with the student, and actually solve the problem instead of just pushing them off for a year.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because I feel like there's no rehabilitation process. Like you have a punishment time, or you have a time where you allocate, where you're going to be taken away from your resources, which they need to be in school. That's like, throwing somebody out of the hospital. They need to be in school, because I feel like certain kids that don't have the resources at home or don't have good parenting, you're pushing them into that environment.
A single mother whose son gets suspended from school 365 days, what is she going to do with that child, for a year? She's already, strapped, sending them to a private school. That's not an option, so we have to think about really making sure that we're solving the problem with the kids and not just passing them along. Now, there are some instances where the punishment does fit the crime. There are some instances where the kid definitely needs to be separated and put to somewhere else where they can rehabilitate themselves, but it's not every single case. And besides that, I serve as chair of the finance committee, And that really gives me insight to the $100 million budget that we deal with, and how we spend that all the way down last year to about $350,000. So making sure that we have things funded and allocated. In some areas, we have to make some tough decisions. When you only have a certain amount of funds, but you have a lot of programs that need to run, it's hard, because you don't want to cut anything, but sometimes it happens like that.
Yeah, so what is your advice for those who, because I hear like that the city council meetings are like open forums.
Right.
So what is your advice to those people who may be complaining or maybe want to come, but they just don't know how to come, when the meetings are? Like, where would they find that information?
Man, the meetings, you can go to the Lynchburg City page. That's where they have the schedules for the meetings. They tell you every Tuesday, when they meet, what time they meet, if they have a special meeting. But most importantly, they have public comments, where you can come and voice your opinion. You have a concern about your neighborhood. You have a concern about something that's going on in the city. You want to voice something and make it aware to the public. Public comments is where it's at. You have the attention of the mayor, city council. Everything will be documented, and you can really get some momentum going. So I encourage people to understand the advocacy process, the organizing process, because you have a voice as an individual. You can get people in your community together. Y'all can come down as a group, talk about things that you want to see done, things that you want to see done differently. It's recognizing the voice that we have and empowering ourselves, taking the steps to come down to City Hall and let them know what our concerns are.
Okay. So when it comes to you being on that financial board, and so pretty much like the issues that we face in our education system.
Yes, sir.
And I remember being in, Lynchburg City Schools. Like, I graduated in 2002 from EC Glass.
Okay.
And now it seems like, there are not enough textbooks, there are not enough this, not enough programs. And one big resource that we don't really see, was not seeing a lot of, not that we don't have a lot of qualified teachers, is they're taking jobs elsewhere,
right, so
they can feed their families. So
right.
Could you elaborate on that issue as far as, is it pay? Is it the atmosphere, or what's going on with that?
We have some great teachers here in Lynchburg. Let me start off there. We have some great teachers, great administrators, so we have some good pieces in place. Unfortunately, we have some of the lowest pay scales in the 100-mile radius. In the state of Virginia, I believe the city of Lynchburg is $7,000 lower than the state average and $15,000 lower than the national average. So we have to compete with the Nelson counties and all these other surrounding bodies who are starting their teachers out a little bit higher. So we'll get the teachers, we'll train them, go through orientation, to go through our process, but a year or two down the line, they might, like you said, have to put more food on the table for their family or make the best decision for their career. Sometimes that includes taking a job somewhere else that can pay them a little bit more. So we have to put the resources where it's important for our employees so they can be retained here, because once again, we're spending more money retraining more employees, rehiring more employees. Some of the programs and the things that we have in place are great in Lynchburg City Schools, but we all know that early education is a key. That the preschool program, the pre-K program, having a certain amount of books read by the age of 5 or 6, different things that we can do. We know that's so important. So last week I took a tour to the Hutchinson Learning Center where they do the pre-K program over there. And I was so impressed with the facility, with the teachers, with the passion, but I was concerned at the same time. There was almost 300 kids there. Only one principal. She didn't have any assistant principals. She didn't have any counselors there. So she has a great program. They're great people, but she needs some more resources to be able to reach those kids. Some of these kids are the ones that are coming in without having read a book, without knowing how to spell their name, starting from ground zero. So here we have a program in place and people in place that are trying to support those kids, but now we have to give them the resources so they can do what they need to do.
Yeah. And that's funny that you say build the resources, because growing up, you always hear our children are the future. and it almost becomes cliche, because once again, like, you're a politician, someone who wants to get in politics, but your main concern is education. Why is education so important to you? And how do you think that the decisions that you make, how will they affect your young kids?
Man, well, education is important to me because it gave me an opportunity to kind of change the trajectory that my life probably would have been on. I have no shame in saying, you know, my mother went to prison, my father went to prison, some of my siblings went to prison, aunts and uncles, all of that. So the environment that I grew up in wasn't necessarily lining up to, you know, going the college route or seeking a trade or whatever, being a productive citizen. So once I started understanding what education could deliver for me personally, being able to attain my degree, being able to get that network of people. That's what education did for me. It really exposed me to other avenues, other ways. You know, growing up in the projects of the hood, you see the drug dealers, you see the people, the professional sports players, the rappers. That's what you see, and you think those are the only avenues out. One thing I can say about education, it exposed me to other ways that I can produce for my family legally, you know, and not have to be looking over my shoulder and worrying about things. So now that I know my family is watching me, I have 3 children, you know, 1 daughter at Dunbar, a son and a daughter at TC Miller. And so they know how much education was able to change my situation and my environment from how I grew up. So I'm hoping that they're able to follow my model. And it doesn't have to necessarily be education as much as just trying to advance yourself. And sometimes that might be getting a skill or a trade or a certificate, you know, being an electrician, whatever. There's so many options out there, but you have to be in those circles. You have to be in the know to know how to take advantage of it.
And there's one powerful thing that you said, and you were talking about empowerment through education, whether it be school education, whether it be educating to get us out of that poverty rate. And that's what I want you to retouch on, because you had some great ideas of how not just to give out money, but to give out education to empower people.
You know, I grew up inner city Houston, underneath the poverty line, with my parents being in and out of prison. Of course, I've had some struggles. I know the no meals. You know, I used to wash my clothes in the bathtub on my hands. So I'm very familiar with the struggle, and I know that poverty is a mindset, because I was always used to not having. I was used to the struggle. I was used to, you know, when we got money, we went and did what we needed to do, and then we just didn't have money for the next 2 weeks until we got some more. But once I was able to retain some of the financial literacy and actually change my mindset about money, actually start to value money and understand what money, the purpose and what it's supposed to be for, use it as a tool, that's when I started noticing things changing in my life. The financial literacy piece is actually teaching you what to do with money every single time it touches your hand. So you're given a strategy, a saving strategy. You know, do you have a bank account? Do you have a savings account? Do you have emergency savings? All these things I was never taught, you know, so it's hard to model something that you didn't see. And it's not just for people that's living under the poverty line, because on the flip side, 75% of Lynchburg is not living in poverty. How can financial literacy help them? I have several of my clients as a financial advisor who work for the city of Lynchburg. They're police officers, they're firefighters, they're teachers, and they meet with me and we talk about their financial situation, and they have questions about, you know, their 401k or their 403b. They have financial vehicles like the 457, not to get too technical. But when you're talking about your retirement, you want to make sure that you have all these things in line and you know what they're doing, what they're producing, and how they're growing. Because if you're assuming that you're going to have X amount of dollars by the time you retire, but you're not familiar with how it works, you could be setting yourself up for a big disappointment. And I've had to have those conversations with my clients. So the financial literacy piece, actually attacking the mindset, understanding that poverty is a mindset, giving people skills and tools to engage and empower themselves so they feel like they're a part of the process, not someone coming in, preaching to them saying, hey, you're living bad, you're poor, let me show you how to fix it. But it's more like, no, I know you need some exposure to some things that maybe you haven't seen yet. And that becomes organic and people buy into it. And so it's not just somebody preaching to you, it's like we're working on this simultaneously together.
So there's a lot of great information, Derek, a lot of ways to empower people. But, you know, from you being a financial advisor, from you having a seat on the school board, I know a lot of people are wondering, like, how do you have time and make time for your family? Like, how do you balance that out?
Well, I'll tell you, my family comes first, so I have to make time for everything else. You know, that's a big priority of mine. Growing up in my situation, not having the best family support as far as a family unit, I wanted to make sure that that was a big part of my life and make sure that that was something that I prioritized. So when it comes to making my calendar, seeing what events I have, I'll check with my wife first. She's the boss, man. You know, she sets that schedule. Somebody might send me something, we want you to come speak here or go there. I'm running it by my wife, you know, because her happiness, my family's happiness, my daughters, my son, all that is important to me. So, and a lot of times I bring them with me. You know, you see me on the campaign, you see me in different places. I'm bringing my children with me because it's important for them to see this. I didn't get a chance to see that growing up, and so I know that there was some distance and there was a learning curve that I had to get over. My children, I'm grateful that they've been able to see this up close and personal, because I want them to know how to advocate for themselves, how to organize, how to stand up for themselves, how to be leaders in the community. And before you can be a leader of anyone else, you have to be a leader of yourself, being confident in themselves, being confident in their abilities. So I'm grateful that they're allowed me to bring them along with me, because I know they'd probably like, another meeting or another forum. Yeah. But hopefully 20 years from now, you know, they'll be able to look back and say, you know, Dad was trying to instill some things into us, because that's what it's about, preparing the next generation. Yeah. You know, I really want to see a lot more leaders in the generations behind us. We have some great leaders right now with us coming forward, but we can prepare the next generation to have a lot more. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's great. And you always hear that behind a good man is a good woman. You always see your wife to your side. So I would say beside every good man is a good woman. Could you explain the importance and the significance of the role that your wife's played in the background, helping you through this campaign?
Man, like you said, it hasn't even been in the background. You know, my wife has been beside me. She's so supportive. With me not being from here and her having those connections, first understanding Lynchburg, the history of Lynchburg, how did we get here? Her father grew up on Daniels Hill. Her mother grew up on Tinbridge Hill. She grew up right off of Rivermont Avenue for her whole young adult life. So her view of Lynchburg, her view of Lynchburg City Schools, her view of leaders in the community, and conversations with her mother-in-law, conversations with her grandmother about the way Lynchburg used to be back in the 60s and 50s and 40s, man, that stuff is invaluable. But my wife, man, she makes sure she keeps me in check. She keeps me on track, helps me prioritize everything when it comes to setting the schedule. If we have a violin recital, if we have a track meet, if we have a basketball game, if I have a forum, if I have a council meeting, whatever it is, she's helping me make sure I can have that balance. And she communicates to the kids if there's something that I can't be. And usually that's only when I'm out of town, because I try to make sure I'm at everything. But I figure as much as I can show them that I'm there for their support, hopefully that will make them a little bit more inclined to come along with me on the things that I'm doing.
That's amazing, man. Because being married, you really don't see too many great examples on TV, whether it be reality TV, YouTube, or whatever. It seems like all the ratings come from dysfunctional households. so it's great to see you and your wife and your kids as one. Now, what effect does your kids have? Like, do you ever get to the point where you get frustrated and you want to give up, and you look back at your family like, hey, this is why I have to push? Yeah,
definitely. Sometimes when you're dealing with any type of politics or board, or, you're only one voice. So, I'm still on the school board, I'm one of 9. On city council, I will be one of 7. So there might be some frustrating times when everyone's not in agreement. You can't get a quorum of the board to agree with you. And sometimes that does get frustrating, because you feel like you're doing things for the right reason for the majority of the people. But when I take it back home and I see my kids, especially when it's something about education, like it's a no-brainer. Like, these are my children that are in Lynchburg City Schools. I need them to have the resources. I need their teachers to be confident. I need their teachers to be comfortable. I want the bus driver to be in good spirits, so when they meet them, they say hello with a big smile. So it's more than just the teacher. The teachers are important, but I want the custodian to be coming to work with a smile on their face, because all these people have touch points with our children. And so if they're in a better place, our kids are going to be in a happy place. But if they're not feeling like they're not being compensated and feeling like they're not truly being valued, then how is that going to translate to the way that they interact with our kids? Not say that they're going to be mean, but it's tough knowing that you have a disconnection notice, or you're coming short on this bill or whatever the case, and be focused on making sure that you're having a positive impact on the kids. So I try to take all that into perspective when I'm making decisions, and a lot of times coming home, even if they're tired, sleep in the bed, being able to see my children at the end of the day, see my wife at the end of the day, reminds me what I'm fighting for.
That's great, man. And living in the, I would say, like after the Me Too movement or the Year of the Woman,
Yeah.
you having, coming up, maybe single parent home at times. I came up in a single parent home, especially with a mother. What is your message, excuse me, to the average woman that may be looking for, someone like you to put in a seat that could be a great role model for their child?
Well, I think this goes even beyond the seat. What I want to do is get back to where we're going to the community. We're actually building relationships with people. I know that people are supporting me in the political, realm, but I want to make sure that they understand that I'm a person, I'm a father, so if we have young men, young women in the community who are lacking that support and that structure, let's bring them in. Let's make this a real community. We talk about community, we talk about wraparound services, but I'm one to be, I'm hands-on. I don't want to just be a TV figure. I don't want to just be someone that is, there for the photo op and then you never see them again. We grew up with politicians, they come around election time and you never see them again.
Never see them again.
So I know that game, and I don't want to be that. That's exactly the opposite of what I want to be. So I want to make sure I'm touchable. I'm real. Like I don't want to be just some figure. I want to be I want to interact.
Yeah, and that's what I can say, man. Like I've been knowing Derek Polley for like almost 10 years. And I would say that throughout this process, he's still Derek, as far as councilman or whatever the title may be. To me, he is still Derek. Like I see him on, being interactive. He's going to places that your average person wouldn't go until it's time for the election. You know what I mean? But you will still see Derek in those places, in those neighborhoods, talking to those kids, taking a chance where no one wants to actually go. And, you kind of see politics as usual, where you see the old phrase, we're kissing babies and shaking hands.
Yeah.
And so Derek's not that type of guy, and that's why I want you guys to really know the type of person. Like, you're dealing with a father first, you're dealing with a brother or cousin, so he knows how it is. And me and Derek worked at a factory here in Lynchburg, so we know what it's like to go home to your family after you're working all these hours. So you're trading time for dollars. So listening to Derek talk about the family dynamic really inspires me, and it should inspire you as well, because it's beyond his seat. It's actually who he is as a person. And, with that being said, where you were talking about, you as a financial advisor, how would all that, everything in your past, how does that process help you be the one to actually vote for it?
Man, well, the financial advisor piece, my job is I meet with people in Lynchburg and talk about their finances. So I have a very boots on the ground feel to what the climate of what they're facing, their struggles, what they're doing. So I don't have to do the data and the research, because this is what I do every day. I talk to people about their finances. When it comes to the education, I got 3 kids in Lynchburg City Schools. I'm on the school board, so I've spent the last 3 years studying the school system, how we can improve, and where areas where we can make adjustments. And so I don't have to get reacclimated to that. I've been living that the last 3 years. When it comes to the poverty, I live in a food desert. I live right off of Rivermont Avenue. So that food line on Bedford Avenue that was taken away, that has a direct effect on me and my family. We don't have access to fresh produce. The elderly in that neighborhood don't have access to a pharmacy, or just going to get some milk or some eggs or some bread. So I live there. My mother-in-law lives there. My wife's cousins lives there. So that's my family there. So when we're talking about a food desert, it's not a place on a map or a picture on a PowerPoint. Like, that's my family. So I want to make sure that they have what they need, and not only them, but other pockets of the city that don't have the resources allocated to them as some other places.
Yeah, man, that's very powerful that you said food desert, because that's a great way of putting it, because it's almost like your zip code can determine your genetic code.
Definitely can.
When basically you're pushing a health initiative, you always hear people saying healthy, but give them the resources to actually be, and why is it so important to set an example of good health? Because someone like yourself, you've probably been running, you had to pencil me in I'm pretty sure you're here and there.
Yeah.
How important is your health? And I think by you being young,
Yeah.
a lot of people love to see somebody take a seat that has a nice bill of health.
Yeah.
Why is this so important?
Man, the stamina, to be out active in the community, there is some wear and tear that comes with it. So you have to have the stamina to not only, you don't want to just get to the meeting and, you're dead to the world. You're not paying attention. You're not interacting. You're not really engaging. Like, you want to be able to come to a meeting after a long day and be able to engage and understand after you've prepared. So being in good health, eating right, exercising. I have a stress outlet. It's basketball still. I still get out here with these young 18, 19-year-olds. That's a part of my community service. I give out buckets. That's just, part of that's what I do. I give out buckets, on a monthly basis. No, but it does, and it keeps the relationship, not only outside of the health part, but it helps me build relationships with people in the community at the YMCA. I go to Biggers Park right there on 5th Street, the basketball court. Rivermont Avenue, Riverside Park. I'm right there on the basketball court. I'm out there talking smack with the youngins, trying to put them in their place a little bit. But all those things help me have the stamina to be able to take this, day in, day out, from the work to the kids to community service to boards or whatever, and just keeping it balanced. Understanding that you can't have too much of anything. It's about keeping everything level and communicating with the people that you love, so nobody feels left out.
So why is it so important to you to bridge the person, Derek, and the actual position in politics? Why is it so important to have them two as one?
Well, it's important that we don't look at city council as, figures, people that we can't access, because sometimes when you're growing up, when we were growing up, we didn't see, like you said, we didn't see many people that looked like us, and so can't really relate. So it's important to see that person take those steps and understand that if you choose to, somebody has already, paved the way for you. You can just follow through and kind of follow what they've been doing.
Gotcha. So, and with saying that, because I remember coming up, we're about the same age. We didn't see too many African American politicians,
right.
And if so, they were on TV. There were no local African American politicians. You rarely seen African American teachers. But I believe that it's a great thing for our children, especially your children, my children, and this next generation, especially after the whole Black Panther movement of the movie, seeing African American males in different positions of power, not just running a business, not just a sports figure, or not just, but actually seeing us run companies.
Yeah.
How important do you think, when you're elected, how important do you think that would be on the young African American youth in Lynchburg?
Well, I'll tell you like this. I know last year about this time I was invited to a group that meets. It's called the Virginia Black Politicos. And it's pretty much just young African American people who are either in political positions or aspire to be. At that time I was on the school board, but some members of the group, Justin Fairfax, who was just elected the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Wes Bellamy, the Vice Mayor of Charlottesville, and just some people in Virginia who are doing, young African Americans, because Wes is younger than me, and he's just, a friend of mine, but he's doing in their cities. So I went to that meeting, heard how passionate they were about making progress for their city, for everyone, but for the African American community as well. And that's what kind of inspired me to say, hey, this is possible. There are people who are already doing this. There are people who have organized, who have advocated, and are now in positions to really influence their city. And that's powerful to me because I was a part of the group, but now I get to see people who are walking it out. And so I'm hoping that if May 1st, people come out and do what we need to do to get me enough votes, that on May 2nd, when we wake up and we can show the kids in Lynchburg, like, hey, here's a young man, didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth, had some struggles, had some failures, made some mistakes, but now he's in a position where he can be a benefit for his community and use those past experiences to help to hopefully be a voice, bring a different perspective. I'm really big on compassion. I feel like city councils, sometimes they have a lack of compassion because maybe they haven't walked that street before. They haven't lived that life before. So sometimes they're talking about poverty, they're talking about data. I'm like, it's not data. We're talking about people. You're talking about a mother, a father, a son, somebody who loves them. When we're talking about it's about having compassion so people understand that it's a living person on the other side of that statistic, So I want to bring that, not to give anybody a crutch, but to show the voice from the other side.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
And I think that's important because, like you said, empowerment through education and empowerment through being heard. Because, like you said, a lot of people view politicians as figureheads that can't be accessed. But here we are from one phone conversation. Like I said, I've seen you talk to numerous people, a lot of people, young and old. I've seen you shaking hands and really getting involved in the community, and not just in the highlight spots, but you're always in the news. I mean, this is behind the scenes stuff where you've been grinding out. So as we sum up everything, I got a couple more questions, but this whole campaign process and your life, how you've changed and went to college and everything, how has your life, your past life, combined with this campaign process? How does that help you grow?
Man, it gives me a 360 perspective, because I know what it's like to be in an environment where there's not much hope. You don't see many things positive going on around you, and you're just trying to figure out how to make it day to day. That's kind of where your mindset is. How do I make it through this day? And then on the flip side, I know what it's like to finally have a path kind of laid out in front of you, making a plan to where you want to go. And now I'm thinking, okay, where do I want to be 15 years from now? Where do I want to be 30 years from now? What position do I want my children to be in 30 years from now? Because 2060 is coming whether we're prepared for it or not.
Yeah, you're right.
So I want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to prepare myself and my family and the community to be in the best position. So I think having that perspective of how I grew up, some of the difficulties and the hurdles, I lost my mother at an early age and my parents were incarcerated, just different things, living underneath the poverty line, and now being in a position to be able to have some influence and be able to make some decisions for people who are experiencing that, instead of people making decisions who have never experienced it. So it's a different type of understanding. They need the data, they need the research, they need all that. Like, that is helpful, but I've lived it, I've lived it. So when we talk about people, working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, we've done that.
Yeah.
We know that grind, and we know the exchange and how that effect that it has on our families. So, I'm coming from a different perspective of real live, I guess, experience with it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so for those who, actually like Derek and you agree with his values, for those of you who kind of share a similar story, because me and Derek have a lot of similarities, and I think the average person does, in Lynchburg, Virginia. Derek, how can they make sure that change will take place, and how can they make sure that your values will be heard and give you a seat at the table?
Well, I think it's about capturing this energy. I think people realize that there's a new option. People are realizing that there's something, brewing in Lynchburg, trying to take it into a different direction. And that's great that we have that energy building, but we have to capture that energy and actually march it to the polls on May 1st. We have to turn that into production where we're turning that energy into something that can push what we want to see happen. And if I'm the candidate that you believe in, then I need not only you, but I need you to bring someone else. I need you to bring a few other people to the polls to make sure that we have the representation that we need. There will be free bus services on May 1st. My committee is putting together transportation for people who need, and I'll get you that information, because we're actually busing people to the polls. So we're trying to take away any hurdle, any barrier that people will have from not voting. So what I need people to do is to capture that energy, make sure that you go to the polls May 1st, bring someone else with you, and if you don't have a ride, let's communicate. We're going to make sure we get John the information to get you guys there. But let's do this, Lynchburg. It's our time. We're all ready for change. So now we have the options to do something about it. We have to take advantage of it. So May 1st, I want to see everybody at the polls.
Thank you. That's well said. And look, just to sum things up, when it comes to, Derek Polley, when it comes to Lynchburg, you all have the greatest opportunity in letting your voice be heard through a vote. And a vote is something that many people fought and lost their life for you to have that right to. So let's go ahead and voice that opinion and let Derek's story inspire you, because here he's someone that lost his mother, had incarcerated relatives, who has every reason to sit back and not. But here he's trying to run and get in a position where he can keep somebody from going through something that he went through, or at least minimize it, even improve our education system. So how many times have you been at the barber shop in the lunch break room and you complain about the city, or you complain about this and that. And now we have a chance, so let's do it. Let's put our heads together. Let's get behind Derek. Along Came Polley, right?
Along Came Polley, Polley for Council.
Yeah, Polley
the one I like is adversity tested, neighborhood approved.
Yeah,
like,
and that's
one
what
of
I
my
like.
favorite ones.
Adversity tested, because adversity will help grow. And I'm telling you, if you go back and watch this video, listening to Derek's experience, all over, his life experience, his personal experience, family experience, financial experience, he's fit. Derek has a lot that he can add and bring to the table. He can pretty much hit the ground running as far as with the average citizen in Lynchburg.
Right.
So there's nothing that he would have to do, learn, have somebody, try to say, hey, what are they saying? Derek knows. Derek's been around the block,
Yeah.
So, hey, man, I wish you the best.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you having me.
Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you having me, man. This show
you.
is what we need, man. You're giving people voices. You're exposing different things in the community. So kudos to you, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. And as I always say, one love, but it's your choice to be blessed. We would like to thank you for listening to this episode of The Art of Reinvention by Teflon John, and we encourage you to share this episode across all your social media platforms. And we also encourage you to visit our website at www.imteflonjohn.com and follow us on all our social media platforms at facebook.com/realteflonjohn, twitter.com/realteflonjohn, and instagram.com/realteflonjohn. And while you're on Facebook, go ahead and like our page so you can receive first-hand notifications every time we go live with the motivational video or any motivational content. And as I always say, one love, be blessed.